And welcome to another edition of the Twins Wrap. Derek Hanson with you, along with the television voice of the Minnesota Twins, Dick Bremer. And, well, as we said off the air, Dick, what a difference a week can make. We're talking about the best team in the American League right now, record-wise, and then 6 losses in a row. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they had a week ago. There was nobody in the league with a better record, and then you lose 6 in a row, and the Twins are still the number 7 seed, or would be if the season ended. And their chances of making the playoffs are still very, very good, but they haven't played well, and they haven't played well against teams within the division. When you get swept in Detroit, you've been swept in Kansas City. You're trying to make do with, a lineup that has really been hit hard by injuries. It's not fun to watch, but the good news is the injured players are now coming back. Tonight, Byron Buxton will be back on the roster, probably starting in center field, and Michael Pineda will be back on the mound. So this is still a pretty good baseball team, and they need to start showing it because right now the White Sox are playing good baseball.
Yeah, very good baseball. And that's the one thing about it. It's not just one thing in this 6-game losing streak. It seems like there's a lot of different things.
Well, and you're taking on a Chicago team that's bashing the ball like the Twins did last year. But the surprising thing is, and this is, I think, something that would surprise most baseball fans, they're pitching really, really well. Their starting rotation since the Twins left town in Chicago at the start of the year has really been good. So this is a White Sox team that is poised to not only get in the playoffs, but right now I think they're playing better than anybody in the American League. They could have a nice long run, but yet we know that if this Twins lineup is healthy and functioning the way it should, they can play with anybody. So the rest of the regular season will be interesting. The Twins just need to, have hit the pause button, if you will, on the losing streak, just to win a ball game and take off from there. And I think they're quite capable of doing that.
Yeah, you mentioned that rotation right now for the White Sox, and you got a guy. I know a lot of Twins fans wanted the Twins to go out and get Dallas Keuchel, 5-2 on the year, and then Pineda. I mean, this is going to be an interesting matchup with a guy who hasn't pitched since last early September.
Yeah, the encouraging thing I think for Twins fans is Pineda wasn't hurt. We've seen what happens when a pitcher who's been hurt, like Jake Odorizzi, comes back. He doesn't really have, the touch on his pitches, the feel for his pitches. This is a different thing. This guy was suspended. It's been almost a year since he's pitched in a game, but he has been throwing and presumably, has been able to, effectively work on his pitches and hopefully will execute them tonight. So while we don't know exactly what Pineda is going to give the Twins, I think there's some optimism that he should be just fine. And, really in last night's game, the Twins, jumped out early 4-0. The White Sox looked like they wanted to give the game away, but then Rich Hill couldn't throw strikes, walked the bases full. And, that was a recipe for disaster from that moment on. And the White Sox, sure enough, ended up winning it in the 9th inning.
It's one of those things, too, where I listened to most of the first part of the game before I turned it to you later when I settled in on my couch and my recliner, actually. But how was that strike zone? Because nothing frustrates me more. I think it's one of the most boring plays in sports is a bunch of walks. And that really the Twins are lucky the White Sox didn't score 14 because they let off, 4 consecutive innings that way.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that the strike zone was the issue. I just don't think Rich Hill had very good command either of his fastball or his breaking ball. Now, give the White Sox hitters some credit for that because they took pitches off the plate. That's a sign of a good hitting ball club. That's why they're hitting so well. They don't chase pitches out of the zone maybe like they used to a year ago. So you got to throw it over, and that should play well into Pineda's game plan tonight because he doesn't walk people. He throws it over the plate. Hopefully he'll get some quick ground ball outs. We expect that Keuchel will get quite a few on the other side pitching for the White Sox. So we had about a 3-hour and 40-minute game last night. It might be 2 hours and 40 minutes tonight if both pitchers are on.
Yeah, because hopefully that is the case. That was just a long, for a 9-inning game, that really drug out for a very long time. Last thing on last night's game before we get into some other things, and this goes back to a conversation I had with Eddie Guardado after he made it very interesting in Game 5 of the American League Divisional Series in 2002. And it was just that sometimes closers, when they're not in a closing situation, whatever mentally it is, they don't do well. And I've never really liked the closer coming into a tie game. I understand they're at home, so they don't have an opportunity for a save, but when they're in that situation, it just never seems to work out. And that was kind of the situation with Rogers last night, although Max Kepler didn't help him by dropping the ball.
No, but I think in all honesty, the Twins really didn't have many options because Hill left early. The Twins went through the entire list of A relievers out there: May, Duffy, Clippard, and Romo. So I think it was Rogers' game in the ninth inning, and the drop fly ball probably turned everything around because then they got some hits, and before you knew it, they had 3 runs. So the only concerning thing about Taylor, the opponent batting average is more than 100 points higher than it was last year. So while some of the hits have been soft hits and bleeders through the infield, he's not getting as many swings and misses as he used to. And that I think is of some concern. I think it's something that can be fixed. But, last night's game was kind of a microcosm, I guess, of what's gone wrong over the last week. The Twins pretty much gave the game away to the White Sox at the end. And what we've seen here during this losing streak, some previously very reliable relievers have given up, some runs. Again, last night, Trevor May gave up a home run that tied the game. Well, nobody did that against Trevor in the first month of the season, but now a couple times in the last couple outings, he's been touched with a home run ball. So this is even in this shortened season, it's a streaky game. And the hope is that the Twins can get things turned around and maybe run off 6 wins in a row just as quickly.
Yeah, Trevor May, it seems once he kind of got away from the big breaking ball last year, it seemed to go better for him. I know he threw a little bit of a slider last night on that home run. That's kind of a weird thing for him right now.
Yeah, and I think it just underscores, again, how quickly teams can determine patterns, getting a really involved scouting report on a pitcher, and then adapt. This is a game of making changes and adaptations and adjustments. And I think we see that all across baseball where teams now adjust much more quickly than they used to with the use of video. Now, they can't use it during the game, but before the game, I can promise you all the White Sox hitters were looking at video of May and Rogers and Duffy and Romo and all of that. And so when they step in the box, they've got so much more background information internally that they can access while they're in the box. And I think we see that a lot in baseball where somebody is really red hot out of the gate, to use this example of a late inning reliever. But then, teams make adjustments and they follow patterns and things like that. And then pretty soon it's the reliever that's having a tough time instead of the hitters.
Let's talk a little bit about the offense because, obviously they haven't been in situations where they can get a lot of hits, and we were so spoiled of that in 2019. So, what do you think? Donaldson coming back? I think Byron Buxton, as we mentioned, hopefully he's back in the lineup. He does seem, on the back end of that lineup, to really be the straw that stirs the drink throughout the whole game. He may not lead off like they tried a few years ago, but, boy, it certainly seems that type of threat, when he's hot, can really help out this team 1 through 9.
Yeah, and then Donaldson, whenever he comes back, it might take him a few games to get up to speed in terms of hitting, but he'll bring a level of intensity that maybe has been lacking. Nelson Cruz talked about that toward the end of the Tigers series. He wanted his team to be a little bit more intense and focused. Well, that'll be taken care of when Donaldson re-enters the lineup probably tomorrow night. This is still a really good baseball team, Derek. They're just not playing well. They played well enough in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season to build a little slack, if you will, to get into the playoffs. They've had a 4-game losing streak, now a 6-game losing streak, and they're still in really good position to get to the postseason. But they do need to play better, and I suspect as these players come back to the lineup, that'll happen rather easily.
And you got to think it's just going to be one of those moments, right? That happens many times, I think. And once you have one of those moments to get you out of that slump, it can go the other way in a quick hurry.
Yeah, and it's, once the back end of the bullpen gets back on the beam, that should be fine. Those guys are really good. But you'd like to see this team score more runs in bunches. They had a 3-run inning last night, but the White Sox gave them 2 runs. And we've seen these guys yet. They miss Mitch Garver and the power that he provided last year. Once everybody gets back, this is still going to be a very formidable lineup. But I think what we've seen, to be fair, over the last couple of weeks, there are a lot of really good teams within the American League Central. Cleveland's good. White Sox right now are very good. And if the Tigers continue their role the way they've been playing, they'll be above 500 by season's end. And as much focus as there is on this Chicago series, and it's fun, and there should be focus put on this series, it's the 5-game series this weekend against the Tigers that really will give the Twins an opportunity to reassert themselves. I think they were not embarrassed, but certainly humbled when the Tigers swept them in Detroit. And the Tigers are the next closest team to entering the 8-team playoff field right now. And the Twins have a chance to push them back this weekend when they have 5 games with them.
I mean, I don't want to get in the whole political part of it. It's interesting, I'm sure, when you head to downtown Minneapolis to work with everything that's going on. But you look at a guy like Randy Knobnick that was ready to pitch Thursday, then ready to pitch Friday, and that was backed up until Saturday. It's unfortunate, I think, if they voted to not play last Thursday and then to be rained out on Friday. That can kind of mess with the psyche a little bit too. I just with the routine that baseball players and really all athletes go in every sport, that couldn't have helped a lot.
No, it didn't. But this is going to be a year where there are going to be distractions, some unprecedented distractions. You've had the Cardinal team unable to play for more than a week. The Marlins were unable to play for more than a week because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The team that wins the World Series, the teams that get into the playoffs, and primarily the team that wins the World Series will deserve the World Series championship. And as I think I've told you before, I don't care if it's the Yankees or the Twins or the Dodgers or the Marlins. It will be a well-deserved championship because they've been able to withstand all the distractions and disruptions and somehow managed to put together a winning season. And then, of course, the hope is we're all crossing our fingers that the postseason will go out without any, significant delays or disruptions.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're dealing with Mother Nature, you're dealing with COVID. It is. I agree with you totally. I mean, I don't care if it's the NBA and NHL and their bubbles or whatever it might be. Any thought of a season that wouldn't mean as much because it's shorter, I think with everything that's been going on, no one's going to look at that as being cheap by any means because this has been.
I sure hope not. The regular season might not be as legitimate because it's less than half of what a normal regular season would be like. But in the postseason, it's the best teams that particular year, and there's one more playoff round that needs to be played. So whoever gets there to the end and wins it all, I think should be a very well-respected world champion.
And what are your thoughts on that? Because I've been thinking a lot about that with the expanded playoffs. Best of 3 series, a really good team. If you got a team that's got 2 really hot pitchers at the end of the season here, that 8 seed could beat that 1 seed in a quick hurry.
Well, it can, but I think what will happen is people will look at that best of 3 series and agree that that's a whole lot more fair than a 1-game wild card game where you play 162 games and somebody drops a fly ball like Max Kepler did last night. Your whole season is over with because of that one miscue or whatever. And so what I expect to see, regardless of how many teams are in future playoff formats, I would expect that at minimum there would be a best of 3 series rather than a single game playoff or play-in format like we've had in years past.
We'll wrap things up again talking about Game Used. I know your book's still out there and people are reading it, and I'm guessing it would be I'm already seeing Christmas stuff at the stores I go to, so not a bad Christmas gift for people either, right, Dick?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great Labor Day gift, to be honest with you. I don't know if anybody exchanges gifts, but no, the book is done really well. I just checked this morning, and it's the number 1 selling book on Amazon in the baseball category, something I never imagined 6 months after its release. But I hope that people who have it enjoy reading it. And let's hope that the Twins can have the type of season in 2020 in the postseason that'll cause somebody else to write a book about this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I certainly have enjoyed the book myself. And I'll wrap things up saying after that long road trip, I'm guessing it's nice to see baseball right in front of you now, right, at Target Field?
Yeah, it was, I know, a long road trip for the players and everybody traveling with the team, but it is sure nice to be able to turn our backs to the back of our booth and watch a baseball game played out in front of us. We'll just hope that the Twins start winning games and that the games don't last 3 hours and 40 minutes like the one last night.
For sure. Dick, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
You got it, Derek.